welcome back to Cup of Imperfection. So today I wanted to go over kind of the curriculum that I used when I did homeschooling for our daughter this fall. If you have watched my other homeschooling video, I will make sure to link it below for you guys. That video was more of like a basic outline, so to speak, of how I decided to go about homeschooling, what types of things that I did to organize myself, as well as a very small amount of the things that we were going to go over. This video is more of an in-depth of every single subject matter that we went over this past fall. So for those of you who did not watch that other video, long story short, with the pandemic era, if you will, we decided to homeschool our daughter for the school year of 2021 into 2022. So this fall of 2022, our daughter will be actually attending a preschool. Homeschool was never something that we actually planned on doing. It just kind of happened. It made sense for us with the current way of the world and the fact that I am a stay-at-home mom. It just kind of worked out for us to take that path. So I did not know anything at all really about teaching, and I learned as I went. I came up with a curriculum all on my own. So I didn't follow like a plan. I know you can go online and you can get kind of like a kit, if you will, for a curriculum, and that's not what I did. I wanted to come up with everything on my own. I did a lot of research and I figured out what types of things and how I was going to go about all of this. So before I go over every single thing that she learned this year, I did want to say some of these things are a little bit more advanced than your basic preschool. And my reasoning for that, I did do in 2020 to 2021 school year, I did do a preschool with her. And my intentions for that was to prepare her for when she actually went to preschool, so she had a little bit of knowledge of, your extremely basic things, your ABCs, your numbers 1 to 10, your colors, shapes, that kind of thing. I wanted her to have a very basic knowledge of what those things were, just so she could be better off when she went to preschool. But since I did homeschool her for her first year of preschool, I decided that, since we already went over the basics, that I would add in some kind of extra things. Whether she grasped the idea or not, I wasn't necessarily sure if it was going to work, but I thought, why not throw some extra things at her, and if she learns from it, great. If she doesn't retain all the stuff, that's okay. But at least, I introduced some of these, more advanced concepts to her. So I'm going to read off of this here. This is my preschool fall 2021 curriculum. So what I did was I kind of did a different paper of all of the things that I wanted her to kind of learn. And then I divided it up into where it made sense for me between health, science, math, history, English, other, skills of sorts. I kind of divvied it up between that so I could further break it down to figure out each week what she was going to learn. So this is just the subjects themselves. So in the health category, she learned about the body, just your basic kind of things. Obviously she already knew, eyes, nose, mouth, like that kind of stuff, but we went over that. But I did go into like the digestive system and circulatory system and all that kind of stuff. We went over some of your more basic things about how the human body actually works. Along with that, we also did your 5 senses. So, we did different things with that. She had fun with some of the kind of experiment activities, if you will, with some of the things for the body and the five senses. She really liked some of the things that, I did with that. She also learned about types of foods, your food pyramid, things that are fruits, things that are veggies, healthy versus unhealthy foods, that kind of stuff. We also went over kind of like manners, life skills, if you will, of, different ways to listen to others, not to interrupt. And if you do need to interrupt, a good way to do something instead of cutting somebody off, wait until they're done with their sentence, pause and say, excuse me, I have a question or something like that. Or, when it's okay to interrupt, like there's an emergency or something like that. We went over that kind of stuff, how to work together and take turns, and, good ways to treat each other, bad ways that you don't want to treat each other, like that kind of stuff, like what is a good decision versus maybe a poor decision on how to treat others. And she also learned about helping at home, different things about chores, and different things that she could do to help the family out here in the house. In the science category, we went over hot versus cold, a very, very basic introduction to the solar system. We went over a book of planets. We watched different things about planets and everything. And, we went over, everything in the solar system and, their names and just a little bit about each thing. Did she retain all of the things that we talked about with the solar system? No. And I did not expect her to. That was one of the extra things. But she does know now some of the, basic things. And she can name some of the planets. Could she pick them out of a lineup? No. But she can name some of them. She does know, asteroid and a constellation and like that kind of stuff. Like she does know some of the stuff, but there's certainly a lot more to learn. And like I said, I did not expect her at all to actually know all of that by the end of school. We also went over a little bit about dinosaurs, just to give her kind of like a brief introduction to what dinosaurs were. We went over plants and how plants grow. We talked about photosynthesis and, the different things that a plant needs to grow, your soil, your water, sunlight, and like all that kind of stuff. We went over the life cycle of a plant, and we even planted some marigold seeds. I had picked up this cute little kit at Target for like $3. It was a little tin. It had a soil pod kind of thing in it that you add water to, and then the soil puffs up. You plant the seeds. She loved doing that. She's been checking on the plant. She thought it was super cool that we got to plant something. We also talked about weather basics, kind of like why it rains, why it snows, what makes a rainbow, that kind of stuff. We also talked about insects and bugs and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really talk too much about it. I am absolutely terrified of spiders, so I really didn't want to necessarily go over too much, but I did want her to be able to have a little bit of knowledge on like the bug world. Speaking of like bugs and animals of sorts, we did also go over animals a little bit more in depth. When I did the preschool, we went over a very generalization of animals. This time we went over a little bit more in depth and kind of researched, if you will, certain animals in the different, categories of like sea life and things you would find in a zoo, what you'd find on a farm, what type of animals people generally have as pets, and birds and like that kind of stuff. So we went over, a lot of that. In more of your math category of sorts, how to count a little bit more. In the preschool, like I mentioned, we did go over numbers 1 to 10. She could, tell you the number if you showed it to her, kind of thing. But I wanted her to be able to count a little bit more. So we started like 1 to 15, and then we went on, from there. And throughout the year, obviously, we were doing stuff with numbers. I added in, more numbers and stuff. She can, count when she's reading the numbers. She can count pretty high, but sometimes, she's trying to do it from memory. Some of the higher numbers, she still has a little bit of problems kind of remembering things once she gets a little bit higher up the chain, but she's doing really good on her counting. Also in the math category, identifying numbers, like, I just mentioned some of the things she can identify just looking at it. Some of them not so much, but she might be able to work it out herself a bit. She also learned how to sort and compare items. That's items as well as numbers, like greater than, less than, equal to, as far as, numbers are concerned, or like identifying and grouping items, and like, these items are blue, these items are pink, what doesn't belong, few and many, like all that kind of stuff. So she would be able to take toys, we use toys a lot, and stuff like that, to kind of help her to group things together and to sort and compare by size, by weight, by color, shape, all of that kind of stuff. Patterns, we went over patterns. I bought those, what are they called? Math links. I bought those. Those were absolutely great for doing, math things, doing patterns, counting, all of that kind of stuff, sorting. Those things are fabulous. We also did basic adding and subtracting. Obviously, that concept is, a tad bit more advanced as well. She did have some trouble with it, but she can do very basic things. As far as different ways to count, we learned counting backwards from 10. We also learned certain skip counting in 2, counting in 5s, and skip counting in 10s. And then I also did a very basic introduction of money, also more challenging kind of subject. We went over, we're in the US, so we went over US money in bills and in coins. We went over what they are, we went over how much it's worth, and we went over kind of like counting, multiples of them. Again, does she, know how to count money right off the bat? No. But she is starting to understand the concept. I also wanted to do kind of an introduction of history. I will be completely honest with you guys. I am not a big history person. So this was kind of challenging for me to be able to kind of bring together different things to kind of explain to her, because not only am I'm not interested in it, nor do I really remember a lot, but that is more of a higher grade kind of thing. So to research, history for preschoolers, you're not going to get that much. So I did a very, very basic kind of outline of the history of the United States, how it came to be. We went over like a world map and like a globe and stuff like that. We picked out, the different continents, and we learned a little bit about each continent, like some different trivia, and, what kind of animals you might see in different areas of the world. The fact that, there are different cultures in different areas, so what we do where we live might not be how somebody else lives in another country. So we kind of went over like cultures and stuff like that. We also went over like the map of the United States and where we live. We went over all the different states and their names and stuff like that, and I pointed to different areas that she's personally been, so she can have kind of a better knowledge and idea of where different areas are. And then we went over a little bit about the government here in the United States. We did the 3 branches of government. Obviously she's not going to retain all of the stuff, but she understands that we have a president, and that there's laws and stuff like that. Like, she totally understands that concept. But does she understand, and could she tell me the 3 branches of government? No, I don't think so. And again, I wouldn't expect her to. In more of your English category, we went over rhymes, word families, rhyming words, that kind of stuff. Writing her name, she knew how to spell her name before. She could find her name in print, but she learned how to actually write her name. We learned more of your letter sounds. Like I said, in the preschool, She did learn her ABCs, but she didn't necessarily know all of the letter sounds. So we went over that. We went over writing different letters, copying different words. I have like the lined paper for preschool, and I would write something on it, and I would have her write, underneath it on the page, what it was and stuff, to kind of give her, a better thing of how to write her letters and write some basic words. We did also go over sight words, very basic sight words. I did not do anything that I thought was too challenging. And then very, very basic reading at the end of the year. Again, that was one of those things I didn't know if it was going to go over so well, but I bought these books. I think they're called Bob books. I found them on Amazon. I will try and link them down below in this video. Those books are absolutely fabulous. They're just very few words on the page. They all build on each other, and she's gone through, I think, 4 or 5 of the books already, and each book builds on the previous book and some of the things that you've learned in, the other books. It just keeps kind of adding to. And she can read these all by herself, and she is so proud of herself and so excited and wants to read them to other people, and these books are phenomenal. So in kind of the others random skills kind of category, dressing for the weather was one that we did at the very beginning of the year, and that was more something that I just personally wanted to teach her, because she would get a little agitated with mom and dad sometimes if she was cold but she wanted to wear a tank top and shorts, but she was really cold and she was getting mad because she was cold, but she was getting mad because she really wanted to wear the tank top and shorts kind of thing. So we went over, the proper way to dress in certain situations like that, and she grasped the concept, and we're no longer having issues with that anymore. So A+ for that. In the math category, I had mentioned we went over kind of like the sorting and stuff. So in the others category on here, I have big, bigger, biggest, and stuff like that. So that kind of, goes in that category as well. Opposites, we also went over opposites. Cutting skills. I bought like a worksheet book that had different cutting activities. I've also, made different art pieces throughout the years, different crafts type things that she could do. And some of them I had her cut out some of the stuff herself, and some of the other things, I maybe cut out for her and she just put it together. But we had, also different ones where she cut everything out herself. There's also worksheets that you can get. I printed some off the internet where it's like you cut a certain line, like it might be a straight line, it might be a jagged line, or kind of like a wavy line, just to get them to understand how to use the scissors. So we went over different cutting skills. We also went over lacing. So I wanted to go over lacing a shoe and tying a bow. We really didn't get that far into lacing, but we did like lacing cards. So we went over that. I bought some lacing cards, and I also made some lacing cards. By making lacing cards, all I did was print off images on the computer. I laminated them, cut them out, and then I took hole punchers and punched holes in it and just used the exact same laces to the lacing cards that we had actually bought. So I was able to do ones for different seasons or holidays or something like that, to kind of add that into school to make it, a little different and a little fun for, different, seasons and stuff. So that was kind of cool. We also went over occupations. We had kind of like some charts of different types of jobs. We watched videos on different types of jobs. Then I also picked out certain types of jobs that I knew we could actually do some sort of activity based around that job with things we had in the house. So like one of the things is, she has a firefighter dress up set of sorts with some of the, things like a hose and, that kind of stuff. So I had her put out a fire. I had printed some, flames and stuff and had them around the room and had her put out the fire and stuff. So it was like different things like that I went with a job, and I tried to find some kind of fun activity for her to do based on that job during our career week, if you will. We also went over directions, up, down, left, right, diagonal, differences, what doesn't belong in a group of items, and we also did the concept of time. So morning, afternoon, evening, and night. We went over AM and PM. We also started going over how to read a clock. She can do pretty good with a digital clock now. With an analog clock, she does still have a little bit of problems, but that's something that we're going to continue to work on. I have Telly, the teaching time clock for her, if you're familiar with what that is. We also have a foam puzzle that's a clock. I had printed off some things on the computer that, has like the digital readout of the clock, and you have to find the analog clock that goes with it. She can understand that really well when it comes to a clock. Once we get into the 12:30, 12:45, like that kind of stuff, she gets a little messed up with that. But the good thing is, because she learned the skip counting and the skip counting to 5, I might have to remind her, but she understands the, okay, so between here and here is 5 minutes. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and she'll have to count her way around, and she'll figure out, where she is on the clock. And with some help, she's starting to understand, but to just look at a clock, if it's an o'clock, she can tell you that, but she has to think, and she might need kind of, a little assistance, at some of the other numbers, like 12, 15 or something like that. So that is all of the actual things that we went over in her schooling. So we went through all of those things. Some of them we spent a whole week on, some of them we spent 2 weeks on. There was a couple of the harder things, like the basic reading and the time that I think we spent 3 or 4 weeks on. I kind of took that curriculum and figured out how long we really needed to spend on each individual subject. And each week we either did 1 to 2 different subjects. So that's kind of how I took that information and put it into my actual curriculum to a T of what we were learning every single week. And I'm not going to share that because I don't think that would necessarily be helpful, because even if you taught your kid all of the things that I just said, you would probably go about it in a completely different way that I did. You might take a longer period of time than I did on some of these different subjects. So I don't think it would be as helpful to show you my exact curriculum of what we went over each and every week, but I thought that going over the subject matter of what we actually learned about could be helpful if you are looking to homeschool yourself in the preschool category, because again, that's not something that I had planned on doing. So I took a lot of time and research and trying to figure out what I wanted to teach her, how I wanted to teach her, and all of that. So if my hard work could help you guys out, then that makes me happy. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.